Now to the U.S., where demonstrators put up red-stained hands and placards in the air behind Secretary of State Antony Blinken and Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin in Washington, D.C. earlier. The anti-war protest was when Blinken and Austin testified to the Senate Appropriations Committee on Biden's request for $106 billion to fund ambitions plans for Ukraine. Let's go over to Capitol Hill and Heidi Zhou-Castro for the latest. Quite a rowdy session there, Heidi.
That's right, Foley. In fact, the Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, couldn't even finish his introductory remarks without 8 interruptions by these protesters who were eventually removed. They were chanting their ceasefire in Gaza and save Gaza's children, and they held up those hands that were painted red because, of course, this hearing wasn't just about Ukraine aid. It was also about $14 billion of aid for Israel that the White House has asked Congress to approve. And Blinken, along with the defense secretary, their role at this hearing is to sell senators on giving the White House what it wants. And Blinken, as expected, repeated that he was steadfast, that the U.S. is steadfast in its backing of Israel. In fact, he described with unprecedented graphic details of the deaths suffered by Israeli civilians on October 7th. Notably, he made no mention of the deaths suffered by Gazan civilians in the time since. But he did emphasize that the U.S. is working more on humanitarian assistance to Gaza, including upping the number of aid trucks now passing through the Rafah border from 60, which is at currently, up to 100. And Blinken also said there is no indication thus far that fears that the Israelis have that this aid could be diverted to Hamas, that has not been the case, and there's no evidence to show otherwise.
Yeah, and Heidi, there's growing opposition from Republicans in Congress to this aid package. Will it pass?
Yeah, see, there's bipartisan support for that $14 billion for Israel. But that is linked in this aid package to the $60 billion that is for Ukraine. And there is dissension among Republicans about whether the U.S. should continue supporting the Ukrainians. This is because the U.S. wants, those fiscal conservatives want to spend less money on these foreign entanglements. But as far as the part of Israel is concerned, the question isn't whether this aid for Israel from the U.S. will pass, but just in what form, be it attached to the Ukrainian aid or as a standalone item. And in either case, there are bills in both chambers, in the Senate and in the House, to advance that aid, at least for Israel. And it is expected to pass in the coming week.
Heidi, thank you very much for the update. Heidi Zhou-Castro live for us there on Capitol Hill.